Welcome to Extra Condensed. My name is Toby Martin, CEO of Extensive. Extensive is a software company. It's been in business for nearly 3 decades, helping creative designers control their chaos. Today we've got an exciting topic, storytelling through animation. I'm honored to be joined by 2 amazing artists who work with MarketScale, an agency that Extensive works with. First, Marissa Harris, design team lead with 4 years of 3D animation. Also joined by Kiara Thomas, an illustrator and animator with extensive experience in 2D and 3D. So let's kick this off by walking through a little bit of your journey about how you both got here and give a brief introduction and how we're talking today. Marissa, let's start with you.
Yeah, so like Toby said, my name is Marissa Harris, and I'm a designer and team lead here at MarketScale. I went to Texas A&M and majored in visualization, specialized in 3D animation, and my degree was a mix of science and art, very technologically based. And ever since graduating, I've been working as a motion graphic 2D animator, and now I'm the leader of the graphics team.
Excellent. Thanks, Marissa. Kiara, what about you?
Yes. So I went to school at the Art Institute of Dallas. And I originally went there for 2D animation. But once I got there, 2D animation wasn't as popular at the time. It was more of a 3D motion design type of environment. And so I spent my first half of my college years doing 3D work. And then once I graduated, I switched. My final portfolio was done in motion design. So just a little bit opposite of kind of how Marissa started off doing 3D and then being a motion designer. I started off being like a motion designer and then transitioning back into 3D. But I also have a pretty extensive background in 2D illustration. That's always been like my original love. And I do graphic illustrations work as well as 3D work here at MarketScale.
Thanks so much. Marissa, you mentioned in your introduction a little bit about science in your art. Can you expand upon that a little bit? I think that's an interesting topic, bringing art and science together a little bit more.
Yeah, so whenever I was in school, a lot of it was using science in the sense of technology, so computer science. And so we had to do things like engineering math, engineering calculus. We had to take different coding classes and things. And so with my design, I now have found ways to use different code or different math problems or even physics to better create. I am a very observational person, and so just even watching different things and understanding how physics works, how gravity works, how things function in the sense of science really helps to better display animations.
Fascinating. Wouldn't have thought we'd be talking about physics today, but that's great. I'd love to hear the different journey of how we all got here. All right, following up on sort of as you began your careers, maybe you could each give us a little bit of advice that you were given as you were a budding designer. So, Kiara, let's start with you.
Some of the best advice that I was given is to focus. I have a tendency to kind of reach very high with my ideas. And being an artist, sometimes you can get a little bit far out there as far as all of the different mediums that I am familiar with. And so for any artist that is trying to get into the design world, I would say pick a focus. Being a generalist is definitely encouraged more nowadays, especially with the internet not limiting ourselves to locations. We can pretty much do anything anywhere at any time. So really finding that thing that you really are focused on, whether it's graphic design or a 3D type of work, really focusing on that so that you can create a content and getting into those industries that will accept you for the type of work that you do.
Marissa, what about you? Early advice from someone, a college professor or mentor, somebody that just gave you some advice?
Yeah, I really like what Kiara said, and I think that's a great piece that I also have been given myself. Another piece that I was given is taking time to do the work that you want to do. it's really important that if design is your job or if it's not but you like to do design, it's always important to do the projects that you want to do outside of work or outside of time that you've set aside to do something else. It's always good to find that time to get back to really finding a vision that you want to follow, and that's not really defined by anyone else, but just yourself.
Well, let's pivot off that, Marissa. I love that because you get asked to do work for a broad portfolio of customers. So let's talk a little bit about designing with intention and the challenge that you may have as artists and creative people to do work for business focused on profit and mapping to goals. So this could be an area where some artists could struggle a little bit. So what advice do you have, or how have you gone about designing with intention in the past? Marissa, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of a fun challenge. There's definitely, when you're designing for profit, obviously you have a client and the client has a vision and a goal in mind that you're both trying to get to. And so finding good communication and sometimes just meeting in the middle, a good compromise on some of the things, having to put aside what you would do in your personal work and maybe what's best for the client. You have to always kind of balance that. But sometimes there's different types of projects that we work on that it's pretty well defined what needs to be done. We're basically helping to create it. Or sometimes we have all the creative freedom in the world. So there's just kind of a whole different range of what we may be working on and what we're doing, and finding ways to always push the creative boundaries in each project is a fun challenge in my eyes. I know that after every project I've grown a little bit, or I've researched a different topic so that I can better design to help the project.
Kiara, what about you? You've talked about focus, yet you have a broad set of skills. How do you find that balance and still do business-focused work as your clients require?
I like to work on multiple projects throughout the week. That's probably one of the things I do like the most here. Going in between 2D and 3D, it allows me to, when I am working in 3D, I can take all of the 3D inspiration that I have and run through as many ideas as I can. And then when I'm working with the client, I can just pick from one spot or one imagination or idea, I should say, and just try that out with them. And then the next day I'll work on something in 2D, and then I get to take another idea that I have and try that out with them. So it's kind of like, I like to throw my net out there as wide as possible, and then whatever I can catch, that's what I focus on the most.
I love hearing the creative process. It's fascinating to someone who's not creative to understand the journey that you each take to get to the end product. So let's pivot a little bit and talk a bit about animation, which is what we're here to talk about today. Maybe you could each give me some ideas about what makes animation so powerful, and when and why should it be used? There's 2D, there's 3D, there's all these different places to go. So what are some good general rules of thumb for other designers such as yourself out there? Kiara, let's start with you.
For storytelling with 3D, you're not as limited with frame by frame animation. Like with 2D, traditionally you would draw a frame or draw one single image, and that's considered a frame. And then you'd have to draw the next image, and it'd have to exactly match that frame. And so it requires a lot of planning. And when it comes to storytelling, you're limited with what you can actually draw, the artist, the talent there that's going to be provided. Whereas with 3D, you're making one model or however many models. Like if it's a character, you make that one character, you texture it that one time, you put it in an environment, and you can do anything that you want with that character with a click of a button. And so with 3D, you're not limited to your imagination as far as what you can produce compared to in the past. I think that's why nowadays a lot of CGI movies you watch now, there's action movement everywhere. Like I think this last Disney films that's been out, I mean, the animation on there is crazy. And because of that, the stories are a lot more complex because you can animate the faces more. You have so much more technology at your fingertips, literally with the click of a button, that previously you would have a massive team of people. It would have taken years to get all of that work done. And so with 3D storytelling, the creativity is absolutely unlimited.
Thanks, Kiera. That was fascinating. Marissa, what do you think about storytelling with animation? Why is it so powerful? And are there times when you would go 2D or maybe 3D or both?
Yeah, so Kiera's points are all great and all points that are always considered. With 2D and 3D both, you can always push further than you can with live action in general. And so I think that's a big plus in my eyes for both types of animation. But exactly like Kiera said, 3D, it has an environment. It's almost like you're building an entire live action world, but just in one software. But you also have the limitations of how lights play into your renders and the time that it takes to produce it. Whereas in a 2D, like Kiera said, there's more planning, but at the same time, you aren't as limited to when you're trying to export out at the end time. So it's kind of like at a beginning and the end process of what will benefit more. But also stylistically, they both bring so many different things to the table. But personally, some of my favorite things that I've been seeing recently have been actually a mixture of 2D and 3D. And I think it's really fun to see how to bring in 3D objects into a 2D space or vice versa and how they interact with each other. So both bring great things to the table, and I love to see how different animators and designers push them to their different levels.
Okay, so maybe you could explain to us a little bit about how businesses are able to take most advantage of animation in selling their products and services. So, Marissa, let's start with you.
Yeah, great question. I think that the animation is so well received because it can be different every time. Obviously animations kind of have the same type of feel, or they can be similar across different styles, but each one has its own story that it's telling, and it has unique characters, and it has its own background and everything that goes into it. So I think that this type of way of delivering your story or what you want to communicate is always cutting edge, because it can always keep expanding to what you really want it to be, and it feels truly customized rather than just going out and having filmed actors or any type of other live action like that.
What about you, Kiera?
A lot of my points are very similar to Marissa's. It's just the unlimited power that you have when it comes to animation, not having to, like I said, hire actors that have to sit and get makeup in movies. Like you can give, you don't even have to use people completely. You can do whatever you would like as a way to kind of convey and serve out new information. And it's always going to be exciting when people haven't seen that before, especially businesses that are not known or industries that are not known for doing cutting edge work. Even the type of work that I do here, a lot of these clients, it's their first time getting this sort of treatments that they're getting here, whether it's ranging from a simple 3D turnaround just to show off something that they do, or an animated explainer or some sort of motion design project that will showcase what they can offer. The options are absolutely limited, and I think going forward, it'll be even better to see what how we can tell stories even more.
Those are some great points. And, speaking about even movies with Pixar and all the different studios and all the technology that's come, it's great to see these things start coming down for people that can afford them a little bit. So let's pivot a little bit and look forward now. So maybe with your deep experience in these areas, what things could you see coming in the next few years as it relates to maybe augmented reality or virtual reality and having an impact on the 2D and 3D design space? Marissa, let's start with you on that one.
Yeah, great question. I think that we're kind of already seeing a turning point in where animation is going for, we mentioned Pixar or Disney. Pixar went really realistic with their animations, and it kind of got to a point where I think many people were wondering how far can they go? You can't go past actually being realistic. And so now we see them kind of going back the other way. I think a lot of things will be kind of similar to how it is in any other art form. I think of fashion, how a lot of people right now and going forward, fashion always is repeating itself, but just reinventing what's already been done in a sense, or combining. So I think we're going to really be seeing a lot of that in animation going forward, finding ways to bring in old school styles and bring it into this newer age still. And not in a sense of pixelation or resolution, but in a sense of actual style and the way it's illustrated or the way there's texture brought in. Just really, I think we're just going to keep seeing so much experimentation that will be different, but maybe still familiar as far as short films and different movies or commercials that we see.
Kiera, where are you coming in on emerging trends and things that you can see coming in the next few years in the world of animation?
Kind of like what Marissa was talking about a little bit early. I'm like a wannabe fashion designer. And so I look at a lot, I've been noticing a trend in combining 3D and 2D, either photographs or sometimes even illustrations in the fashion world, taking inorganic shapes and putting like hyper realistic clothes. There's a software called like Marvelous Designer, and you can literally like just sketch up a little shirt and then it poofs, it makes a 3D model and it naturally falls over whatever you place it over. I've seen a few phone apps that utilize that technology with the augmented reality. You can like, I wish I knew the name of the app off the top of my head, but you can like stand there and take a CG model of a shirt that they provide and then like map the shirt onto your body to see how that shirt moves or not moves, see how it might look on you. I know that they've done it with glasses for years, but it's getting pretty good nowadays, almost to a point where it feels a little bit like, I hate to say it, like almost like an invasion of privacy. Like this thing knows how to map my entire head. That's like wild. But other trends that I've noticed is using software like 3D Tilt and like the Oculus, not just for video games. That's mostly how I use it, see it being utilized, is making these VR games where you're walking around in these crazy worlds, or a lot of horror games. People like to get scared, and so it's kind of like the new fun house. But I have been noticing people telling these stories. They're like almost like walking simulators. You put on your headset or you take your phone and you can just walk around and you're like in a whole new like landscape. And so as we go further on into the future technology, I'm looking forward to just like walking into a store and seeing the store on a whole different level through one set of eyes, through my 4 eyes, and then through what my phone or any other technology that I might be carrying. So I'm just looking forward to like one day reaching through the phone and pulling out something.
That's amazing. I love your perspective and looking forward and how things that were prohibitively expensive in the past have come down market. Everybody can do things that Pixar was doing. Now we're starting to see it changing the way we're interacting with our reality, from glasses and Warby Parker, things that they've been doing for years. You mentioned Kiera. So it's a great series, and it's a great time to be alive and see all the changes that are coming. So let's ask you one last question. At Extensis, we spend a lot of our time trying to save people such as yourself time, helping you control that creative chaos I mentioned. If we were to give you each an hour a day of savings, what would you do with that hour? Kiera, let's start with you.
I would use that time. I'm a big plant mom. So I would be using that time to find a way to like incorporate more like nature and plants into my space. We spend a lot of time, in an office type of environment, and things can sometimes feel a little bit sterile. And so if I could just introduce a bit of nature into my day, just 1 hour to just go outside and I don't know, or bring the outside somehow inside, for just that 1 hour. It's kind of like how you step outside and take a breather and you come back in. I would definitely love to find a way to incorporate more outside into my inside space.
Marissa, what about you? With an extra hour, what would you do?
The plant one is a great one. I also love my plants, but I think I would get back to one of my art loves, which is painting. I would probably try to actually do a quick paint in an hour, or something of this sort. But I never give myself time to paint anymore, so I would love to get back doing that with an extra hour. I could definitely do that.
Excellent. Great stuff. Thank you. Well, wrapping up, big thanks to Kiara and Marissa for sharing your knowledge, your perspective, how you got here, and some fascinating data points. Thanks to everyone who is watching today. Please feel free to ask questions of us. Watch us on YouTube, throw some comments in there. Follow us on social media. We'll be sure to get back with you. And you can continue to follow us for more thought-provoking content. Today, we'll leave you with one of Extense's most recent animated videos worked on and contributed by these two amazing artists. Thank you.
The creative process is both organic and structured, and every minute you're trying to bring your ideas to life. When your workflow feels seamless, all barriers to creativity fall away. You want to connect your team and all your tools without obstacles, keeping everyone in the creative zone. Technology is working as it should, a hassle-free feedback loop. But it doesn't always work that smoothly, now does it? Sometimes these steps can get out of control and become overwhelming. We call this creative chaos. Extensis believes you are capable of boundless creativity. You come up with new ideas, manage tons of fonts and images, and find just the right words to turn your ideas into reality. You are magicians of multitasking, and we will help you invent amazing. We are committed to improving your creative workflow so you can focus on adding your creativity into the world. We're ready to connect with you. Get in touch with us today.